In the winter of 1970, inside a sterile Cleveland laboratory, a monkey's severed head awakens on a stranger's body. It tries to bite the finger of the man who created it. This grotesque proof of concept was the critical step in a decades-long obsession. The goal was to achieve the unthinkable, the world's first human head transplant. But the quest to cheat death by surgically stealing a new body would raise a question far more terrifying than the procedure itself. If it worked, what exactly would wake up? The ambition did not begin in America. Its roots were in the Cold War Soviet Union with the experiments of Vladimir Demikov. In the 1950s, he perfected a procedure to create two-headed dogs. He would graft the head, shoulders, and front legs of a puppy onto the neck of a larger dog. The transplanted head was alive. It could see, hear, and swallow. The world watched in morbid fascination. Films showed the second head lapping at a bowl of milk, even as the fluid drained uselessly from its severed esophagus. Demikov created 20 such creatures. None survived for more than a month. They were celebrated as a triumph of Soviet science. Across the ocean, an American neurosurgeon saw something else entirely. Dr. Robert White was not a mad scientist in the Soviet mold. He was a brilliant, respected, and deeply Catholic surgeon at the Cleveland Metropolitan General Hospital. He believed the soul, the very essence of human identity, resided exclusively in the brain. If the body was merely a vessel that failed, then science had a moral obligation to provide a new one. To him, Demikov's work wasn't a circus act, it was a blueprint. White dedicated his career to one goal, perfecting cephalosomatic anastomosis. His 1970 experiment was the culmination of this work. He took two rhesus monkeys. One head was amputated and moved to the surgically prepared body of the other. White's team raced against the clock, connecting the carotid arteries and jugular veins. When the clamps were released, blood from the new body surged into the severed head. Its brain came back online. Its eyes opened. It tracked the movements of the surgeons. When a finger was placed in its mouth, the monkey's jaw snapped shut with primal fury. It was aware, it was alive, and it was trapped. The spinal cord was severed. It was and would always be paralyzed from the neck down. It died after 8 days when its immune system rejected the foreign head. The procedure was a scientific landmark and an ethical nightmare. But for White, it was a success that paved the way for a human trial. The proposed operation was a symphony of clinical horror. First, the patient's head and the donor body would be cooled to just 10 degrees Celsius. This induced deep hypothermia to slow the death of cells. The donor body presented the first and most profound ethical abyss. It could not be a simple cadaver. It had to be a living, breathing human being who was declared brain dead. A person with a beating heart whose existence would be terminated to serve as a biological machine for someone else. In the operating theater, two surgical teams would work in perfect synchrony. As one prepared the recipient's neck, the other would decapitate the donor's body. Then, the most critical moment. The recipient's head would be severed from their own body. An impossibly sharp, nano-thin blade would make the cut. From that moment, the point of no return was passed. The head, sustained only by machines, would be moved to its new home. Surgeons would meticulously suture the arteries and veins, restoring blood flow to the brain before permanent damage could set in. If all went perfectly, the patient's brain would awaken. They would see, hear, and think as they always had. But they would be a prisoner in the most absolute sense, unable to move, unable to breathe on their own. They would be unable to feel anything below the surgical scar. A conscious mind grafted onto a body it could not command. A living head on a dead vessel. For decades, this procedure remained a terrifying theoretical possibility. Then, in 2015, a human volunteer emerged. His name was Valery Spiridonov, a man with Verdnig-Hoffmann disease, a catastrophic form of spinal muscular atrophy. His muscles were wasting away, his body collapsing. Facing certain death, he saw the procedure not as a horror, but as his only hope. He publicly volunteered to have his head transplanted by a controversial Italian neurosurgeon, Dr. Sergio Canavero, who claimed he was ready. Spiridonov's desperation gave a human face to the ambition. He became an international media sensation, a symbol of the desperate lengths a person would go to live. The world debated his fate, but the core question remained unanswered. The scientific payoff, the answer to the mystery, was both simple and catastrophic. The consciousness that would awaken would be that of the head's owner. The soul, the identity, as Robert White had believed, resides in the brain. But this is not a victory. It is the beginning of the true torture. The insurmountable wall was and remains the spinal cord. It is not a simple wire that can be reconnected. It is a bundle of tens of millions of nerves, an impossibly complex biological superhighway. Severing it is permanent. Dr. Canavero promoted a chemical called polyethylene glycol as a secret weapon. This fusogen that could magically fuse the severed ends of the cord was met with unified condemnation from the global neuroscience community. This was fantasy. Decades of research have shown that while some regeneration is possible, restoring meaningful, controllable function is beyond the reach of modern science. The reality was grim. A successful transplant would not create a new life. It would create a living hell. The patient would awaken to a state of total, irreversible paralysis, experiencing a form of locked-in syndrome on an unimaginable scale. This comes with the added trauma of being attached to a stranger's body that their own biology would inevitably try to reject. Canavero, along with his Chinese collaborator Ren Xiaoping, was branded a charlatan by many in the medical community. He was accused of offering false hope to the desperate and pursuing personal glory through a scientifically unsound and ethically monstrous procedure. The international outcry halted any plans for surgery on a living patient like Valery Spiridonov, who quietly backed away from the project. But the story does not end there. In November of 2017, Canavero made a shocking announcement at a press conference in Vienna. He declared that the world's first human head transplant had been successfully performed in China on a corpse. During an 18-hour procedure, he and Ren Xiaoping's team had attached one human cadaver's head to another's body. They claimed to have stimulated the nerves and proven the connections were viable. This was not a breakthrough. It was a morbid piece of surgical theater. Performing the procedure on two dead bodies proved nothing about restoring neurological function, overcoming immune rejection, or the nature of consciousness. It was a rehearsal on the dead that sidestepped every single profound biological and ethical barrier that makes the procedure a monstrosity. The legacy of the head transplant is not a story of medical progress. It is the story of a scientific line in the sand. From the two-headed dogs of the Soviet Union to the grotesque monkey experiments in Cleveland to the ghoulish surgery on a corpse in China, the ambition has served as a relentless cautionary tale. It forces a confrontation with the very definition of identity, life, and death. It stands as the ultimate medical taboo, a stark reminder that the quest to conquer mortality can sometimes lead not to a new form of life, but to an unimaginable form of damnation.